Good afternoon. Can you hear me in the back? I just want to take care of a couple of housekeeping items before we get started formally. First of all, we have an opportunity for some Q&A, and note cards are available. You'll see in the back Dr. Sabrina Hom in the blue has got some note cards. So if you think you have a question that you'd like to ask today, go ahead and get that done, and you can pass them back to the end of the row, and she'll pick those up throughout the afternoon. Second of all, I'll go ahead with some thank yous. We want to thank the American Democracy Project for providing an opportunity for a voter registration table in the lobby, and they will be set up later as well. So if you have any questions about all things voting, they should be able to answer it for you or figure out how to find you to the right resource. Second, we want to thank the Women's Center for hosting the live stream event. We want to thank our co-sponsors, the Women and Gender Studies Program, the Philosophy and Liberal Studies Department, the Government and Sociology Department, and we want to thank our colleagues at Events, Communications, and University Advancement for their help this afternoon. So again, take a couple of minutes and fill out those questions if you have one. And the other message to the students who I know are interested in making sure they get in on the sign-up sheet is that it was so hot out there, we wanted you to come on in, but there will be an opportunity to sign up after the event. We'll have much, much more paper in the back for you to do that, so make sure you get that done, okay? So we will take just another couple of minutes for you to work on those questions, and then we'll get started. Thank you. I suppose I should have said, and turn your cell phones off, right? Thank you. So welcome to the Women in Politics panel discussion with our distinguished guests this afternoon. I'm Victoria Gordon. I'm the Coverdell Visiting Scholar for the fall semester here at Georgia College, and it really is my distinct honor to moderate this afternoon's discussion. We've had our housekeeping items, so I'm going to step in here to the very short introduction of the panelists in alphabetical order. We have with us today Mayor Mary Parham Copelan, who is the first female mayor of the city of Milledgeville. She is the second mayor to run unopposed to be elected for another 4-year term. She's retired from the Department of Corrections and recently completed her term as president of the Georgia Municipal Association for the 6th Region, and currently serves as member of the National League of Cities Equity Inclusion Board. Welcome, Mayor Copelan. Next, we have with us Georgia College President Cathy Cox, who served as Dean for Mercer University School of Law and is president of Young Harris College. She's been a practicing attorney and was elected to the Georgia House of Representatives. She broke new ground as Georgia's Secretary of State, becoming the first woman in Georgia's history to serve in this constitutional office. Welcome, President Cox. And finally, we have Skye Gess, who is the Solicitor-General for Baldwin County. As the solicitor, she is responsible for prosecuting misdemeanor crimes and local ordinance violations for Baldwin County. She's an experienced trial lawyer who believes in giving back to her community. In her role as solicitor, she continues to develop programs for domestic violence awareness and teen dating violence awareness. Welcome, Solicitor Gess. So you'll note that I left their introductions very short because I thought it might be more appropriate to let each panelist describe themselves just a little bit. So as we get started, could you each tell us a bit about your background and what led you into politics or taking a run for elected office? And we'll start with the mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gordon, first and foremost, for the invite of being here, and Dr. Cox, Dean Cox, for hosting and allowing us to be here, and being with my friend here, Skye Gess, on this panel, and thank all of you for being here to hear what we have to say. My name is Mary Parham Copelan. I am born and raised here in this wonderful city of Milledgeville, being here all 56 years of my life other than to vacation in different places. I am currently, as she described, somewhat retired. I still drive the school bus every morning. I get up and take kids to school, and then I go back and I pick them back up and drop them back off in the afternoons. So I'm married, 3 lovely children, 5 wonderful grandchildren, and host a family here in this area. I'm so proud to see a part of a group that I'm a part of, the Ministers' Wives and Ministers' Widows organization that's here today, Ms. Chester and Mrs. Rayford. Thank you for coming out. And also a wonderful person that's on the Board of Education, Dr. Gloria Wicker. Thank you for coming out to share in with us. So here I am, your mayor, and just ready to serve. That's a little bit about me.
Okay. Solicitor?
Well, good afternoon. My name is Skye Gess, and I'm the Solicitor General. A little bit about my background is I am a University of Georgia graduate. I got a political science degree in 2009 from UGA, and then went to Mercer University to get my Juris Doctorate degree. I started off in the District Attorney's Office right here in Baldwin County for the Okmulgee Judicial Circuit. And served there for 5 years under Fred Bright and Steve Bradley, and then was appointed in 2018 by Governor Deal to become the solicitor here for Baldwin County, and then had to go into an election in 2020. I'm married to my wonderful husband, Josh, who is a farmer, so if I'm not in the courtroom or around town, I'm normally tending to about 400 cows with him and our fur baby, Lucy. So it's just an honor and a privilege to be here with y'all today and to be invited to speak on this panel.
All right. President Cox.
Well, I won't bore you with my background because I think most of you know most of it. I started out in college as an agriculture major at ABAC and earned my associate's degree in agriculture. When I transferred to the University of Georgia, ABAC at the time was only a 2-year school. I earned my bachelor's degree in journalism, went to work at a newspaper where I was the police reporter and covered all things related to crime and murder and fire and car wrecks, and had to cover the courtroom end of it for someone charged with a crime, and that's how I got interested in the law. Went back to law school. Skye and I both graduated from Mercer Law School, and then went into private practice. I got into politics, I often say, because I have the defective genes of a child of a politician. My father was in politics pretty much all of my life. Literally as an elementary age child, my father ran for city council and then for mayor in my hometown of Bainbridge. And my mother would put my sisters and me out on the streets of Bainbridge with little cards and say, go to every door, knock on the door, ask them to vote for your daddy, and we'll pick you up at the next street. And that's how we learned to campaign in elementary school. And so election nights were always fun because my dad was always running for something. He ran in city offices, and then he was elected to the legislature when I was in high school. And so I had a front row view of state politics and legislative politics for the next 16 years until he passed away. And so I really came to love particularly the legislative process, because we would read the paper together and he would say, well, the story in the paper said this, but this is what the Speaker of the House is really going to do. Or here's what it says, but here's what's happening behind the scenes. So I kind of learned the intrigue and the backstory of politics from my dad's job. But more than anything else, I saw him doing good things for our community, and I saw that people would come to him with problems I didn't necessarily understand, but I knew he could use the tools of government to help people with problems that really meant something to them. So I grew up seeing a very positive side of politics and elective office, and figured that somewhere down the line I'd like to pursue that myself.
Thank you. I have a few questions that are directed to you individually, but we'd like to hear from all three of you on kind of the broader issues. First, Solicitor Gess, I noticed that you focused on programs relating to domestic violence and teen dating violence awareness in your role. Can you tell us a little bit more about those programs and how you came to set those priorities?
Well, I kind of attribute it to my background starting off in the district attorney's office, where I was responsible for prosecuting aggravated assaults, sexual assaults, murder cases, and really seeing that there is a need to make sure that we're reaching out to our community to make sure that people know about the resources that are available. I had the opportunity to work on a murder case where a lady was killed in a domestic violence situation, and I learned through working on that case that my predecessor had had a long history of things going on between this victim and this defendant, and that knowledge was crucial. So when I was appointed to be the next solicitor, I saw the need and the importance to make sure that we were continuing to carry on those programs relating to domestic violence, because it's one of the most underreported things that happens in each and every community. One of the other things that I saw was that offenders and victims were younger and younger. And I know I was getting older and older, but we were seeing 18, 19, 20-year-olds who were coming into the office. And we really developed through my office the Teen Dating Violence Awareness Program, where we go into our middle school and we talk about unhealthy relationships, warning signs. Who should you talk to? What should you do? We talk about things about building positive self-esteem, because it's my hope that those are people we will never have the opportunity to see in my office. And if we can just prevent one thing from happening, then I've done my job. If we reach one person, then that to me is one of the most important things. So we do things like our girls' paint party, where we reach out to girls in all of our different schools, bring them in, and we spend a night building and lifting each other up, reinforcing positive self-esteem, because we know victims of domestic violence have lower self-esteem. For our boys, we do a boys building bash, which is boys achieving successful heights, where we're connecting them with male role models so that they have a mentor in their community. So that's just near and dear to my heart, because I can be a prosecutor, but it's so much more important to be in the community, to be able to talk to people so that they know we're here to serve and to help. So we really focused on that just from kind of the experience of dealing with more serious violent felonies that I had in the beginning of my career.
Thank you. Mayor, could you tell us a little bit about how your life experiences have shaped your priorities as a leader for the city?
One thing I tried not to do in my introduction was to bore everybody with all my different hats that I wear. But it has shaped me to be where I am. I gave a shout out to the Minister's Wives and Minister Widows. That group, being a part of them, really shaped me as a woman, as a young woman, going into areas in life and how to deal with things. Now that I am the mayor, that I see so many different issues that women face every day, just trying to get to where I am has really given me a broader sense of what it means to be a woman in a male-dominant role. And so about a week or two ago, I participated with WIMAGE in Sacramento, California. It's Women in Municipal Government, and teaching women how to come out and run for office or seek office and make sure that they're able to be a viable candidate for whatever office they want to be in. And so now that I sit in this seat 5 years later, it has given me the opportunity to grow and to mature and to nurture, as Dean Cox said, around politics even more. Growing up in high school and middle school, I was on student council for several years, student vice president and treasurer 1 year. So being able to see politics firsthand experience, you know, I grew up through a time which was a very dark time for many of us as African Americans, as minorities as a whole, when it came to voting. We think so much about how people died for us to have our legacy and to be able to grow and to mature in the seats that we're in today. Oftentimes, I think I get the question of how do it feel for you to sit in this seat, being the first female, let alone the first African American female to sit in it. And what I share with most is this: if it's your desire to run in any office, in any political area, then you need to make sure that you do your research, do your homework, and know what area, where you're going to, where you're growing at, and what you need to be doing in order to perfect it. And so it has truly molded me into being a better mayor as I go along, as I learn to listen, as I watch and I talk and speak with younger women. As Solicitor Gess just said, I try to participate with her whenever she's promoting something with domestic violence. Because if we can see one, we'll reach one. And if they can see what we're doing to make things better, we no longer have to take the back seat as women. We are able to come to the forefront now and be whoever you want to be at, whatever position you desire to be at. So it has really molded me into be a better person and a better mayor. And I think it's going to continue to shape me as I deal with women, such as these sitting on the panel, students such as yourselves sitting in the audience, and our community as a collective whole, that we'll all become one community. And I often share with people, in community there is unity, and without the two, we cannot have one.
Thank you. President Cox, you have described your varied career as a journalist, lawyer, politician, and now a leader in higher education. Can you talk a little bit about the leadership skills that you've developed along the way?
I have worn a lot of hats, like the mayor said, but I have found, and I hope that all of you will find over the course of your careers, that you'll pick up skills along the way that really just compound themselves and help you in different ways as you find other things to pursue, because you're going to change jobs and careers and industries as you go forward in your lives. Certainly when I started out as a newspaper reporter, I learned how to write well, I learned how to write under pressure, I learned how to put myself out there on a crime scene when things were really hectic and go up to law enforcement and insist that they tell me what had happened and get the story. I had to put myself in very uncomfortable places of going to autopsies and all kinds of other places because I had to get the story, I had to get the information. And so I learned in my first job out of college the benefit of getting out of your comfort zone if you really want to learn, if you really want to get additional information, if you really want to do the best at your job, even if you're not having to write stories and things like that. You've got to do more than what is expected of you in your job. I went from there to law school and went into private law practice and had to keep learning along the way. I learned in law school lots of practical skills that certainly help you advocate for issues, help you learn to think critically about issues, and I use those skills every day on a college campus where you learn to analyze issues from multiple angles. You certainly learn in law school that there's never just one side to an issue. You think about going to court, there are always two sides. There's the prosecutor side and there's the defendant side. There's always at least two stories the judge is going to hear. But there are going to be multiple sides to any issue, and that's the value of a legal education, is learning to think about things from different perspectives and learn to advocate. So my vice presidents here are learning that I don't like to take no for an answer, because there's got to be another way we can tackle this issue. You know, if we just think about it, we can approach this in a different way. But I think those are beneficial skills. Over the course of serving as Secretary of State in Georgia and running statewide campaigns, it's like a graduate course in interpersonal skills and people skills, and learning to deal with people that don't like you for political reasons and have different agendas, and learning that you can't accomplish anything by yourself. You've got to learn to work with people that sometimes agree with you, that sometimes don't, but trying to find common good and common places where you can get people to agree with you is the fine art of compromise and negotiation. And while some people criticize that, that's really how the world gets along and how the world moves forward. And it's a skill that I think everyone should develop in whatever workplace they find themselves, because it's what makes decisions happen. It's what makes workplaces move forward. So I'm glad I've had a lot of different experiences, but I've been able to pull from all of those different areas, even on the Georgia College campus today.
Thank you. Solicitor Gess, in terms of your particular job, what might be some skills that someone out here might need to start cultivating to do your job? Could you talk a little bit about that?
I think one of the things I learned very early on in my career was patience. I remember sitting in my boss's office going, I don't understand why they're not calling me and asking me these questions, and why don't they trust me or the answers that I give them? And so he's like, if you will just be patient, he says, one day they are going to get to know who you are, and that's going to come. And that's a hard thing when you're very eager and you want to just really impress everybody. I was so excited to become a prosecutor, and that was what I had wanted to do. And so I was very impatient early on. So you've got to learn to be patient. And that's dealing with people too, when you maybe don't agree on an issue, or maybe you have a difficult victim. Patience is a very important skill. I think one of the big things that I've learned in being solicitor is you have to listen. You have to listen to the people that are around you, to the people who are on your team, and not just hear what they have to say, because sometimes we can be moving from thing to thing and task to task, and we may hear what they say, but we may not be listening. And so that's one of the things that I think that I've really tried to develop in terms of my leadership style, is being able to listen to the people in my office, listen to the people who are in leadership positions within our community, having those conversations like with the mayor about how do we make a difference, in understanding and listening to what's going to make us better. So I really think that's probably one of the most important things that I have learned in trying to become a better leader as a solicitor.
Thank you. Mayor Copelan, I know that you ran unopposed for your current term as mayor. Only a few years earlier, I have been told that you won your first term by only 5 votes. This is quite an extraordinary demonstration of the power and importance of voting, especially at the local level. Several of us here would like to hear from you your thoughts on the importance of voting and what we can do to protect voting access.
So my thought on that is that every vote matters. If you don't get out and vote, my grandmother used to have this saying, an empty wagon makes a lot of noise. And so until you get up and be a part of the solution and make sure you elect officials into office that are serving the purpose for the greater good. And I'm not just talking about political parties. You need to be able to look at every side and make sure it's what constitutes what's right for everyone. Protecting and preserving, I say all the time, we must educate to vote. If you don't get out and educate people on voting, how and why, what's on the referendum, what are you voting for, People need to be educated about that. Don't wait till the last minute to get your voting registration up to par. Don't wait till the last minute if you're going to vote absentee. Don't wait till the last minute if you're going to vote in person. These are the things that you're going to have to do in order to make sure that voting right access is protected. And that's the only way we'll protect it, if we get out and we make sure we educate people. Just don't wait till presidential elections. You know, most people get excited in the atmosphere, and I'm going to use as an example, many of us, when Barack Obama was elected, you know, everybody rushed to the poll and they wanted to vote. But then what about the other side of when it's not a presidential or gubernatorial election and it's a local? Your local elections matter. You need to get out and vote on your local elections. It's good to have somebody here on the local level that can have the governor's ear, that can have anyone at the legislative area's ear bent that you can talk into. I use mine. I make sure I call frequently and they know who I am. So that's the way I can get things done to make sure, okay, we're voting and we're going to make sure everybody in here understands. Even last year in the midst of COVID, my first thing was, who has covered Georgia College? We have at least 600 students in our community that are our babies for about a year, just about, until they go home on vacation. So we need to make sure we garner every person. We need to get everybody out. Grassrooting, root voting campaigning is great, but you need to have everyone involved that will get involved. And I believe that's the way we'll protect our voting access.
Thank you. President Cox, with your experience as Secretary of State, would you like to add something?
I would. Could I
Good.
just talk the rest of the afternoon about voting?
Yes.
I could, and I would love to. Certainly during the years that I served as Georgia Secretary of State, the issue of voting and elections grew in importance in my life and in how I wanted to advocate for it. But certainly for the age group of many of our students, I think it is really important to talk about because all of you are voting age. For some of you, this election in November may be the first opportunity you have to vote. So it is very important that you get registered to vote like now, like this afternoon. The deadline for voting in November is coming up in just about a month. So if you want to vote in November for governor, for all of our members of Congress, for all of our state constitutional offices, you have to get registered to vote in the next month. It's easy peasy to do. You can do it today, you can do it online. It's really easy to do. But you need to develop a habit of voting, as the mayor said, in every election, local election, state election, federal elections, because I've seen year after year that a lot of young people think their vote doesn't count, but that's where it's important to know history. We've had some very close elections in Georgia in the last 2 election cycles, and there are some people who think that's some aberration and there's something wrong with that. That's where it's important to know history, because over the last 25, 30 years, actually more like the last 50 years, there have been dozens and dozens of elections, statewide elections in Georgia, that have been decided by less than 10 or 15,000 votes. And when you take that down to the number of precincts in Georgia, there are over 2,000 precincts in Georgia. So what we're talking about is if 5 people in each precinct voted differently, or if 5 more people showed up in each precinct, the results of all of these elections could be different. So just 5 of you, if 5 of you showed up at a precinct, it could change the outcome of an election statewide. You all have the right to register to vote and vote here in Milledgeville if you so choose to declare this as your residence for the moment. Residency is something that can be transient. You can be a resident of Baldwin County while you're in school here, and you can change that when you graduate. It's not carved in stone. It doesn't affect any of your financial aid or your parents' tax status for you to declare yourself as a resident to vote here. And it might be easier for you than to try to get an absentee ballot or to vote out of town or something, or to get home on election day. So I'm just saying, I'd love for you to be registered to vote here in time for November. But it's so important because the issues on the table affect you. And right now, there are a lot of issues that will affect you specifically, your age group, your personal well-being, your financial well-being. And so it is very important for you to get educated on the issues, on the candidates, and to make your voices heard so that candidates will respond to you. They are running for an office to represent you, and they can't represent you if you don't vote and make your voices heard. So we could go on and on about all kinds of election peculiarities and parts and processes of elections, but most importantly is that you all become active and regular voters and be educated voters along the way.
And I'm with Dean Cox on that. I would advocate for you to be voters here, please. We can get you signed up today.
Thank you. We all know from what you've said that you all value education, and we'll start with Solicitor Gess on this, but we'd like to hear from all of you. Could you talk a little bit about an educator or a mentor who has had an impact on your career or elected path, and what did they teach you or help you understand?
I think this is one of the toughest questions to answer. There's just so many people that I've had the opportunity to meet who have shaped and molded me, who have prepared me for where I am today. But I kind of go back to the very beginning of being a prosecutor. At the time, Fred Bright was the sitting district attorney and gave me an opportunity. And I will never forget the very first rule he said of this office is we always do the right thing. He says it doesn't matter about anything else. You do the right thing. And that's something that I think I've carried with me. It's something he constantly reminded me. It's not about winning or losing. It's about doing the right thing, seeking justice, serving people, taking care of them. And that's something when becoming solicitor, I said, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do the right thing no matter what. And sometimes that's to your own detriment. And sometimes it can be a very lonely place to stand and do the right thing. But I think he's one of the people who has influenced me most in where I'm at today. And I'd probably also put Jackie Watts in there. She is the director of the Victim Services Program for the Okmulgee Circuit. And I remembered coming in, being an attorney, going, I have no idea how to talk to a victim. How do you talk to somebody about the worst thing that's ever happened to them in their life? And she sat down and taught me so much about how to be an attorney, to be a prosecutor, to be an advocate. And she would be there when things got tough. She was a big cheerleader, and she taught me how to dig in and fight when sometimes you think that there is no way out or that it's just, you're going to fall flat on your face. And she's probably one of the people I still seek regular advice from, because she was the person who was the heart of that office and the support. And so those are probably the two people who have molded and shaped my career path to where I'm at today.
Thank you. Mayor, would you like to talk about a mentor or an educator that's been influential for you?
So a mentor for me, and she's here today, she didn't know why I was asking her to come, has been Ms. Beverly Rayford, and she's an educator at that too. So many times when I needed to talk and needed someone to listen, she would always guide me in the right way. And even down to when I decided, when God had given me this vision to run for mayor, and I finally made the choice, and I told her, she said, baby, why not? You know, you would be great at it. And so she actually pushed me really, really hard. She and the other ladies, a part of that group. Another educator in high school, I loved history. and his name was Mr. John Seals, and he would make his history classes come alive. Unlike most lecturers, they lecture, but he would sit on that desk and he would talk about every piece of history that he was explaining to us. If it was nothing but, okay, today we're going to see the redcoats and they're riding down on their horses and this, that, and that stuck with me. And it gave me a lot of value to understanding our own history and where we are today with it. So those two people are certainly great mentors that I hold on to now dearly. Along with Ms. Chester back there, I hold on to them and I call them for every little thing.
Thank you. President Cox.
That I agree with Skye. That's a really hard question because there's so many people that I have admired along the way. I would certainly give credit to one of my professors at ABAC. She's passed away now. Her name was Helen Strickland. She was a journalism professor and the advisor to all of the student publications. And I became an editor of the yearbook. I wrote for the student newspaper. And she just sort of cultivated this whole crowd of students and pushed us to do more than we ever really knew we were capable of doing, not just as student journalists, but she just sort of took us all under her wing, took us to her home when we were working on papers and books and things in the summer. And so we all became part of her family, but she stuck with us really the rest of our lives and her life. When I began to run for office, she was right there helping me campaign and giving me ideas for the campaign and just telling me, just as the mayor said, you can do this, you should do this, you'll be great at this. And everybody needs somebody like that in their back corner encouraging them. So from an education standpoint, I would definitely give her the credit. She was, of course, very glad when I changed from agriculture to journalism and put that behind me. But once I moved into the political sphere and into law practice, I had lots of mentors in law practice. But over the years in politics, I have most admired the elected officials who I knew were standing up for things that were right, just as Skye has referenced with Fred Bright, standing up for things that were right when they weren't necessarily the popular things. And you certainly can see that today. It's a rare commodity, unfortunately, to see people stand up against public pressure when something is right. I'm dismayed at the number of elected officials that, stick their finger in the wind and run down the course of where they think polls are leading them or where they think the crowd is going, as opposed to saying, this is right for my community, my state, my nation, and I'm going to do what's right, even if I get criticized for it, because that takes a real level of backbone and strength and leadership and just moral fiber that I think is very important. And I've seen that in a number of people. I saw it, many of you would not know the late Speaker Tom Murphy. He had a caricature as a grumpy, gruff, old country kind of lawyer. He served as one of the longest serving speakers of the House of Representatives of any state in the country. But he could take the slings and the arrows, and people criticized him all of the time. But he could stand up for issues to save the pressure off of some of his members when he knew it was the right thing for the state of Georgia. And we have a lot of things in the state of Georgia, like the World Congress Center and things in downtown Atlanta that would not have benefited his district. He was from the Carrollton area. He probably got a lot of criticism in Carrollton. Why are you supporting these things in downtown Atlanta? MARTA came about during his tenure as Speaker. But he knew it was good for Atlanta, good for the state of Georgia, the Georgia ports in Savannah. He was a big proponent of supporting the ports, and it's now one of the biggest economic engines the state of Georgia has. But he could take the criticism because he knew it was the right thing to do. And I hope you'll all, when you get to hard decisions, you'll say, is this the right thing to do? Because I can sleep at night if I know I've made the right decision, regardless of the noise out around me.
Thank you. So put your elected official hats on for a minute, and we'll start with you, Mayor. What barriers or obstacles did you face in deciding to run for office and on the campaign trail?
Well, first and foremost, I don't think I decided. The Lord decided for me. Okay, so when He gave me that, I was actually working up on the Atlanta side with the National Federation for Women. And so we were at a party meeting, and this pretty lady walked up to me. Her name was Judge Penny Brown. And I was like, is this the real judge right here? And she held my hand, and she said, I don't know what you're doing, but I think this is the right time for you in politics. And I was like, okay, the Lord had already spoke that, but I'm going to leave that on the table for now. As I gradually kept praying about it, saying, Lord, are you sure? Because you have a sense of humor that you want me to run for mayor. And so once we came to the decision, I said, okay, I need to talk with my husband. He was fine with it. As Ms. Rayford, why not? Put both hands in my back and said, go for it. What issues I faced on the campaign trail, to be truthfully honest, if there were darts, I didn't feel them a whole lot. Everybody that I went to, I started with the council at that time, the sitting city manager. I went to the sheriff, and I talked to all your local elected officials. And one thing I remember that Sheriff Massey said to me, and I did it well, he said, go over in the enemy's camp, knock on doors, make yourself personable, and give them what you're standing on your platform, what you're running for. Also had the opportunity, at that time, was meeting with the progressive women that met right over here at the St. Stephen's Church. I think that was St. Stephen's, and they were very encouraging. And so as I went along on the campaign trail, people just warmed up, and I'm sitting back in awe, saying, you know, is this really happening? Am I really running for mayor? Oftentimes today, people still say to me, I still don't think you believe or you feel the magnitude of what has been placed in your lap. And I can say that truthfully, sometimes I feel that way because there are so many challenges, you know, a female walking into a male-dominant arena, okay, where you have to take off your heels sometimes, and sometimes you got to pull the hair back in the ponytail, and you have to stand up, as we've heard before, as what's right. And, okay, not that I'm being heady, but knowing what I'm doing here, knowing and researching, making sure I'm aware of what's going on at that time, that I can speak on it. I would truthfully say that to this day, my first 4 years, I think everybody had pity on me. They felt like she's learning. Starting of this year, it has been on, but I think people have realized that she has took a hand to the bull's horn, and that she really understands what is going on, and that she is doing this job. And so now when I have to speak to one of the male counterparts more often than any, I think they realize, and it's like, ooh, don't try the mayor today, okay? And I'm a very humble person. I always stay even keyed. I try not to get rattled fast. And so challenges that I meet are the things that are going on within the city that I have to see and talk with constituents hand on. And my challenge is that I have to go through other people. I'm that swing vote. When 6 are in place and things don't go right, then I'm the one that has to make that decision that some might feel, you know, I might have made the wrong decision. Some are going to feel I made the right decision. But at the end of the day, as Dean Cox said, I'm going to sleep at night because I made the right decision. So I don't get so rattled anymore about the challenges. I welcome them now.
Thank you. Solicitor Gess, obstacles, barriers to deciding or on the campaign trail?
So I never thought that I would be in politics in my 30s. I thought that I would seek some form of elected office much later in life because I just thought, well, I've got to mature, and who's going to vote for a young person? So I didn't see myself in the role that I'm in. The solicitor who unexpectedly passed away left an opening for an appointment. And going back to those mentors and the people who help guide and shape us, I remember Miss Jackie coming into my office, and she goes, you're gonna put in for the appointment. And I looked at her and I said, you're crazy. I said, absolutely not, because it was scary, uncomfortable. I was going to uncharted territory, and I was really afraid of failure. What if I can't be a leader? What if I can't do the job that requires? And I ran the other direction as hard as I could. But unfortunately, fortunately, people kept saying, you're the right person for the job. You need to do this. You need to put in for the appointment. You know how to prosecute cases. You know this county. You know this community. You can do the job. And so after much prayer, a lot of conversations, I did put in for the appointment and was appointed to the position, knowing that I would have to run my first campaign in 2020, which was a contested election, which again was a scary place to be, uncharted territory, and I didn't know a whole lot about how to run a campaign. So that was one of the challenges and the hurdles, was finding out how do you actually run for an elected position. Of course, there's door knockings, but putting together signs and events and things like that. So that was one of the big obstacles and challenges. But one of the other things, I have a pretty tough skin, but one thing that I wasn't prepared for, and one thing I think that women face that our male counterparts don't necessarily deal with, is I remember going out and talking to people, trying to get endorsements and supports from particular people who I thought I needed their support, and having conversations about introducing myself, what my goals were, what my plans were. And I remember being brushed off going, someone told me, they said, well, you're pretty, you'll be fine in an election. And I was caught very off guard because I was like, I'm accomplished, I have a law degree, I've prosecuted murder cases and aggravated assault cases. I wanted to be recognized for my accomplishments and that I was the best person for the job. So I think that was one of the things that caught me most off guard, that I don't think that sometimes men, when running in a campaign, have to deal with. And I really felt that I was under a microscope and I lived in a fishbowl during that 2020 season, that my hair had to be put in place, that I had to be in the right outfit, because it's something that people will judge a woman who is running for an office that a man doesn't necessarily have to deal with. And I just didn't expect that when I first stepped out to run in 2020.
I'll twist this one just a little bit for you, President Cox. Same thing, barriers, obstacles. But for these young people out here, how do we encourage them to run for office? What can we do?
Sure. I had some similar experiences as Mayor Parham and Solicitor Gess, because I'm probably older, and when I first ran for the legislature, there had not been a woman elected from Southwest Georgia where I was running, and I just knew I could do the job. I knew I wanted to do the job, but I was running against a 16-year incumbent member of the legislature, committee chairman, and he just totally took me for granted, which in hindsight was such a blessing, because I think he could not figure that anybody in rural Southwest Georgia would vote for a woman or a lawyer. He was a farmer, and of course this is agricultural country, so I never ran an ad that said I was a lawyer. I ran all my ads pictured out in the middle of a peanut field saying, I too have an agriculture degree. But when I would go around door to door and store to store, I have a vivid recollection of going into this insurance office in Blakely, Georgia, which was one of my counties. And I didn't know the people, but I was going everywhere. And the man said, come on in, I've got this customer here, and tell us who you are and what your story is. So I said, I'm Cathy Cox, running for the legislature, and gave him my spiel. And so the customer, he looked at me and he said, you're so cute. I just wanted to deck him, you know. Just like Skye said, you know, what does it matter whether I'm cute or not? And he's like, this will be good experience for you, honey. I'm like, I'm just going to beat you so badly, you just don't know. And of course I did. Went back to see him the next time I ran without opposition. So I felt like I accomplished something by showing the people in the district that a woman could do the job. My mother was most concerned, not that I could do the job or not, but that I would be up there in Atlanta all by myself during the legislative session. But when I ran for Secretary of State, because Georgia had never had a woman as Secretary of State, every week somebody said to me openly, "Are you sure a woman can do this job?" I mean, it was a constant drumbeat because people had not seen a woman doing the job. And I would say, it does not involve heavy lifting. I promise you, a woman can do the job. But it matters so much for people to see diverse people holding office because they get used to seeing only one kind of person holding an office, and they just get in their mind that's the only person that can do that job. So if anything, I hope that I helped to open that door to an array of people to hold that and lots of other offices. But for your perspective, those of you who would ever think about running for office, I hope you hear from some of these experiences, and particularly the women in the audience. I still think, sadly, that women need to be encouraged more so than men who sometimes take the initiative themselves to say, I can do this job, and go and run for office. Women sometimes just need some extra encouragement from other people and so maybe you don't see yourself as a candidate, but maybe you know 5 other women who would be great, and you might be the one, just like Skye and Mayor Mary said, somebody sort of put the word on their heart that you'd be good at this, you'd be the right person. And when I ran for Secretary of State, I had the opportunity to be Assistant Secretary of State for a year, and people said, you know this job better than anybody else. I said, well, I have no money. I'm not known statewide. I had 50 reasons why I couldn't do it, but I did know in my heart I could do the job better than anybody else that was likely to run. And so despite no woman having done it before, no woman having raised enough money to win statewide, I jumped in and made it happen. So women can be their own worst enemies. I'm just here to tell you, and I wish it were not that way today, but we need all of you, and we need your backgrounds, your life experiences. We need you, even at your young age, to start thinking about running for office. You don't have to wait until you're 30, 40, 50, or beyond to run for office. You can be very effective as a city councilman, as a member of the state legislature, in all kinds of offices the year you get out of Georgia College. You do not have to wait, but prepare yourselves by being involved in your community. I think the best elected officials are people who know what's happening in their community. They're not running because they just want a title. They're running because they've seen a need in their community that they want to try and help serve through an elected office, whether it's to serve the crime in the community and prosecute crimes or help victims, or whether it's to serve because of all of the services that city governments provide, or whether it's the policy level that interests you on a state level or beyond. We need your perspectives now, not 20, 30, 40 years ago. So start being involved and knowing what is happening around you, and that can be a natural pathway to running for office and building a network of friends that you get to meet who will be happy to help you on your campaigns.
Dr. Gordon, can I add something to that as well, too? I'm glad Dean Cox said that, because we are our worst enemies sometimes, women. We need to encourage one another. Don't put one another down, but encourage one another that they can do it. Yes, you can do this. Let's get behind you and make sure you have everything that you need. Because as she said, I'm sure none of us really had the monies to run for office. I funded my own race in my run. And so, as she said, my incumbent had been in office took me for granted until my name started popping up, billboards start going up, signs starts going up, and it's really a woman running for mayor. So when you make up your mind in your mind, just do it. Don't be afraid at any cost. Just do it. I'm gonna put Nike sign on it every time. Just do it.
And volunteer to work on campaigns. You learn so much by being a volunteer on campaigns. Everybody that's running for office between now and November would love to have you as a volunteer on their campaigns. You'll learn about the fundraising process. You'll learn about the strategy of how you do voter outreach. You'll learn about how much money it takes. All of that can build your knowledge base of what it takes to run your own campaigns.
Thank you. We are down to our last prepared question, and then we'll open this up for Q&A. You are all three undoubtedly successful, but what do you want your achievements to lead to? I'd like to start with the mayor. What do you want your legacy to be?
So I have, as I stated, 3 beautiful kids, 5 grandchildren, and having been raised here, I want to see Milledgeville move further ahead than where we are. Oftentimes I share with City Council, 75 and 20 is coming at us like a train off the track. So we need to be prepared. What I want to see is that this city grows to a point that, okay, I feel like I want to stay home in the urban league today, or I might want to go to the suburbs and say I want to hang out in Atlanta. But we can offer you everything right here where you live, as well as going into any other city to do it. My legacy that I want to leave is my footprint, and I share with people that as of this term right here, that Mayor Copeland plans to leave a Sasquatch footprint. It's going to be bigger than most people could ever imagine. And doing that, I think what we will garner is more visitation coming to our city. We'll hopefully, with Dean Cox here now, I'm going to be rubbing arms with her. I want more students here at Georgia College. And so in doing that, we have to grow, and we got to push outward, and we got to have something for you to do. We would love to keep many of you here in our community. So we need career opportunities. Most time people say jobs. No, I want career opportunities. You've put in the hard work 4 years here. Your parents or whoever has spent the money for you to get your education. And so you become a part of our community, and many of you do stay and find work here. So in order to do that, we got to be progressive. We got to move Milledgeville forward, Baldwin County forward. My legacy right now is I try to be as big a humanitarian as I can, and that's working on both sides of the aisle and in the middle, to say that we can come together as a community, city and county, grow this place like never before, and show everybody what we're working with. And that is making the greater good for everybody here. To enjoy our place where I say I love Millie, the place where we love, we work, we play, and we educate right here. Now, you are my constituents, you are my neighbor. Why? Because I shop with you, I eat with you. My kids go to the same schools you go to. We make sure that we're on the same roadways. If we don't do nothing but be at the pump and pump gas. So now we're so intimate, I want to keep you here. And I want to see us just be progressive together. Diversity is huge here. Diversity is huge with me. I believe that we have something that can serve every aspect of what we present here in the city of Milledgeville, Baldwin County. And so that's the legacy I want to leave. I want to make sure we put diversity so high above the mark that everybody feels comfortable here.
Thank you. Solicitor Gess?
You know, just to echo what the mayor said, this is a wonderful place to live, to start a career, to grow a family. I'm not originally from here, but it is my home. And it is a place that I want to make sure that it's safe, that as people come out to enjoy dinner or you're walking down the sidewalk, that I do my part in keeping our community safe. I want to make sure that people know about all of the wonderful resources that we have, that you have people who are here to listen, who are here to serve. Like I said, if all I ever do is help one person get out of a bad situation or deter them from a bad path that they're going down, then I feel like that's a job well done. That's why we put so much time and energy into the community. programs that we do and the resources that we offer. I think that I want people to know that I'm a person who is here to listen, that I'm approachable. Sometimes people think a prosecutor is a very scary person, and I'm just a normal person, and I'm here to listen. And I want people to know that I'm fair, that I look at all angles of a case, that I listen to defendants when they come in and want to share their side of the story, that I listen to our victims. I think that's an important thing. And of course, that I'm going to do the right thing, even when I'm the only person standing at the end of the day. And that's sometimes a very lonely spot. I think the future is bright. And if you would have asked me a few years ago, would I ever have the courage to maybe one day seek a bigger office? I probably would have said, absolutely not. But that's hopefully a goal for me in the future, is that I will be able to seek a statewide office and continue to grow and move forward. I think I've garnered a little bit of confidence, and I've had so much support and encouragement, and so that's where I hope to go from here.
And she will answer the phone, even if she's out there on the farm.
Yes.
President Cox.
I don't think about a legacy. Maybe I'm too busy for that, but I guess in every job, every position I've ever held, and particularly from an elective position, I've always felt like that was such a sacred trust that the voters gave me this opportunity to serve in an office, that I did not deserve to be reelected unless I could show that I had accomplished something. And I feel that way about the people I vote for reelection. What have they done for me? And to that point, I always felt like I needed to show that I've made something better within my watch. As a House member, as Secretary of State, whether I was a lawyer in law practice and a client was coming in the office, what could I do to make things better for them? As a college president, as a dean, what can I do during the time that I'm on the job here to make things better? Because in higher education particularly, we're in a very competitive environment. We know, students, that you had a lot of other choices. You could have attended other institutions. We know how smart you are to have chosen Georgia College, just saying, but we want this to be the best experience you could possibly have, and we want future generations of students to choose Georgia College because it just gets better and better and better. But it won't get better unless all of us in administration and the faculty and staff are working constantly, unless we have this urgent feeling about making things better in a competitive environment. Because if we don't have that urgent feeling, we will fall behind. Any business will fall behind in a competitive marketplace if you don't have that desire to make it better. So when you go into the working place, if you don't contribute as an employee, regardless of your job, to making your workplace better, your job, your company, your enterprise could be in jeopardy of falling behind. And so I guess if there's any legacy, I just hope people say, she helped us make it better. And that's what I hope will happen here at Georgia College. We've got people who I think share that passion for making things better, with great ideas and vision for how things can continuously improve for the student experience here. And that's what wakes me up and keeps me going every day.
Thank you. So we are going to turn to some student questions, and these are really good. And students are listening, obviously, because these are very apropos. The first one, and I'll just let you all decide who wants to jump in. How would you recommend learning about local candidates if somebody decides to vote here? How would you do your research?
So in this particular election, it's not our election season as city council, mayor and city council. However, we had a member to die in our first year of our term. So now we have a seat that's vacant, which is District 5, and the ones that have qualified, what you do is once you you hear that they've qualified. It's in the newspaper. They put everybody in the paper, and they talk about their goals or where they have been, what they want to see done as their platform. And what I suggest to you then is that you research that person, get to know who they are, see what platform that they are actually running on. Is it something that you're concerned with? Is it going to meet your needs, and how it meets your needs? Because once they started knocking on doors and coming up to you, then you should be able to get the answers that you want out of that person running for that particular district. Normally, we all run at the same time, so our next election season will be 2025, when mayor and council will all run together. And so at that time, oh, got a hand up? Great, great. Did you all get that date? September the 20th? The 10th?
10th.
Help me out. Dates, September the
Okay.
10th. And yes, I do plan to be there to hear everybody's platform, because as the mayor, I'm really kind of just standoffish, but what I am looking forward to the most is working with whoever the people elect and getting in there and getting the job done. I oftentimes tell people I can lead from the middle, the back, the front, the side. It doesn't matter where I'm at. It's about the teamwork and how to get the job done. And that's how we do at the city of Milledgeville, is teamwork. And so if you want to get to know those candidates, that will be a great time that you can be upfront and personal. You can ask questions. They'll answer them for you, no matter what they are. Don't feel like there's no dumb question. I'm learning that, Dean Cox. There's never a dumb question. So just ask whatever it is that you want to know. So that's a good thing. Thank you. I appreciate her. I love her, you guys. Wonderful professor.
Could I add, on the state level, you can go to the Georgia Secretary of State's webpage, just Google the Georgia Secretary of State's office. There are different departments, but there's an elections department under the Georgia Secretary of State's office, and then there's a place that's called My Voter Page. That's where you can actually enter if you're already registered to vote, you can enter your information and find out who the candidates are that you will be voting on in November. And then you can Google those candidates and find their websites and what they have online for their campaigns.
Okay, next question is, and this was submitted early by a student, so I want to make sure we get to this. Why do you think we have never elected a female president in this country? Or as I like to ask my students, will Dr. Gordon ever see a female president in her lifetime?
I believe we will. I believe we will actually see a female president in this lifetime. But there again, it goes back to you being an active voter, being informed enough to go out to the polls and vote. So we've made success already because we have a female vice president. Who knows what tomorrow holds? She might end up in that seat. We never know. But I believe one with great intentions that really want to hold that position, that they'll be able to do it. And as a female, I'm going to be one pushing forward. Let's get her in, whoever she may be.
I think we will see a female president, and I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later. That would be wonderful to see. But I think one thing that we've noticed is there are more and more women who are running for office. There's new organizations who are really focusing on building women leaders, doing summits to try to make sure that women are feeling supported and that they are ready to run for those offices. And it's really up to our future generations. It's up to you to go and vote. I remember registering to vote for my first time at the university because I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to cast a vote. And so it really does come down to you, and every vote matters. So if that's something that's important that you want to see, then go vote.
Well, we are at the end of our time, but we have so many questions left, and I want to thank the students in the audience for asking these, and I'm going to pass them along to the appropriate person here who I think they're directed to. There's certainly some specific questions about city, county, state programs that we may be able to get some more information about. I also want our students to remember that we are so happy that you're here. The other guests that are here, we so appreciate that you're here too. And so before we give our panelists a round of applause, I just want to thank my students that are here. So good job, guys, for being here.
Great job.
So to our panelists, thank you for setting such a good example for the young folks in our community, and we look forward to great things from all of you. And don't forget, if you're a student here and you need to still sign in, you can still do that after, okay? And voter registration is still available for information. Thank you so much. Panelists?
Thank you.